At 6 in the morning, before Willow Creek had fully opened its eyes, Emma Hayes was already piping lemon frosting onto a tray of vanilla cupcakes. The little shop smelled of butter, sugar, coffee, and the kind of hope that had to be remade every day before anyone else arrived. Outside, Main Street was still quiet, the antique store dark, the pharmacy lights blinking awake, the church bell waiting for 7. Inside Sweet Haven Cupcakes, the ovens hummed, the display case glowed softly, and Emma stood beneath a ceiling that needed repainting, pretending she had not noticed the overdue invoice clipped beside the register. Her hands moved with practiced grace. Her heart did not. Every cupcake looked perfect. Almost everything else in her life felt one bill away from breaking. Sweet Haven had once been her grandmother's little bake shop. Back then, the sign above the door had read Rose Hayes Homemade Cakes, painted in blue letters by a local man who accepted peach cobbler as half his payment. Emma had grown up behind that counter, standing on a wooden stool while her grandmother taught her how to crack eggs, fold batter, and tell when a cake was done by listening instead of trusting the timer. Rose Hayes believed food remembered love. She said a person could taste impatience, pride, grief, and forgiveness if they paid attention. Emma used to laugh at that. Now, years later, she understood too well. She had changed the shop after Rose passed away. Not completely, never completely. The old recipe cards were still framed on the wall. The wooden counter still carried knife marks from decades of cutting cake layers. The little brass bell above the door still gave the same bright sound every time someone entered. But Emma had painted the walls cream, added pastel shelves, turned the old cake menu into a cupcake display, and renamed the place Sweet Haven because, at 26, she had still believed a new name could make grief easier to carry. It had worked for a while. Then the world moved faster than her little shop could follow. The new cafe 2 blocks over had online ordering, glossy photos, loyalty points, delivery apps, seasonal branding, and a website that looked like it had been designed by people who understood how modern customers decided where to spend $4. Emma had handwritten chalkboards and cupcakes that made people close their eyes on the first bite. Once, that had been enough. Now, some mornings, she watched people walk past her window holding coffees from somewhere else, not because her cupcakes were worse, but because her shop had become easy to forget in a town learning to look at screens before sidewalks. She hated admitting that. She hated even more that it was true. Beside the register sat a folder labeled Investment Proposals. 3 polite rejections rested inside. One investor had called the shop charming, but not scalable. Another had suggested she remove most references to her grandmother and create a cleaner brand for younger buyers. The third had liked her cupcakes, smiled kindly, and said, "You need a digital strategy before you need money." Emma had thanked him, closed the shop early that day, and cried in the storage room between sacks of flour and paper cupcake liners, not because he was wrong, because being right did not make the truth easier to afford. She picked up a finished cupcake and placed it carefully in the display case. Vanilla, lemon frosting, a thin curl of sugared peel on top. It was Rose's old recipe with Emma's small twist, the kind of cupcake that tasted like sunlight through kitchen curtains. She had made it 1,000 times. She had made it once for a boy with ink on his fingers and impossible dreams in his eyes. The memory arrived without permission. Caleb Monroe, 17 years old, sitting at the back table with her notebook open, sketching imaginary logos for a bakery Emma had not yet known she would own. Back then, Caleb had wanted to be many things before the world decided he was meant to be a doctor. He drew posters for school dances, redesigned the town festival flyers for fun, and once spent an entire weekend creating a logo for Emma's future cupcake empire, as he called it. The logo had been terrible and beautiful, a cupcake with wings floating above the words Sweet Haven in letters that looked more hopeful than professional. Emma had teased him for it, then hidden the drawing inside her journal like treasure. He had kissed her cheek in her grandmother's kitchen and told her, "One day, people will line up for something you made." She had believed him because love made the future sound simple. But senior year ended, and the future stopped being simple. Caleb received a scholarship, then another opportunity, then pressure from his father, then acceptance into a pre-med track that everyone in town celebrated as if leaving were the same thing as becoming. Emma stayed because Rose's health was failing, because the shop needed hands, because someone had to remember where the measuring cups were and which customers needed sugar-free frosting without being asked. They tried to make plans. They tried long calls, weekend visits, promises written with the confidence of young hearts that had never been tested by distance. Then, one evening on the old baseball field beneath bleachers painted by generations of students, they let each other go, There had been no betrayal, no screaming, no cruel words they could hate each other for later. That was part of the problem. Caleb had held both her hands and said he did not want to ask her to wait for a life he could not yet describe. Emma had told him she would not ask him to shrink his dreams to fit inside Willow Creek. They were both trying to be noble. They were both too young to understand that sometimes noble words still break the heart. When he walked away, she had not run after him. When she went home, she had written a title at the top of a page in her journal, "Reasons I Love Caleb." She never finished the list. The bell above the shop door jingled at 7:30, pulling Emma back into the present. Maggie Collins stepped inside carrying a bundle of tulips from her flower shop and a look that said she had news too big to hold politely. "Don't panic," Maggie said. Emma looked at her over the display case. That is the kind of sentence that makes people panic. Maggie placed the flowers on the counter and lowered her voice, though there was no one else in the shop. "The hospital is bringing in a specialist for the training program this month." Emma reached for a coffee cup. "Good for the hospital. Emma?" The softness in Maggie's voice made Emma stop. Maggie continued carefully. "It's Caleb." The coffee cup slipped slightly in Emma's hand but did not fall. For a moment, the ovens, the invoices, the rejected proposals, the new cafe, the whole quiet town disappeared behind one name, Caleb Monroe. Not the boy in the baseball field now, not the teenager sketching cupcake logos in blue ink. Dr. Caleb Monroe, if the years had done what everyone expected of him. A man who had left Willow Creek with a scholarship and returned, apparently, important enough for the hospital to announce. Emma set the cup down because her fingers had begun to tremble. "When?" she asked. Maggie's face softened. "He arrived last night?" Emma looked toward the front window as if Main Street itself might answer for him. Outside, a hospital ambulance passed slowly in the distance, its lights off, its white body catching the morning sun. Caleb was somewhere in town. Breathing the same cold morning air, driving past the same streets where they had walked after school, maybe remembering, maybe not. Emma hated that she cared which one. She hated even more that beneath the ache, something inside her had quietly come alive. Maggie reached across the counter and touched her hand. "You don't have to see him?" Emma gave a small laugh that sounded nothing like amusement. "In Willow Creek? Maggie, I'll probably see him before lunch behind someone buying cough syrup. Then you don't have to feel anything." This time, Emma almost smiled. "That might be the worst advice you've ever given." "I know," Maggie said, "but I panicked." Emma looked down at the vanilla cupcakes with lemon frosting, the one recipe Caleb had always loved. Of course she had made them today. Of course she had. The day unfolded with cruel normalcy. Customers came and went. A retired teacher bought 6 red velvet cupcakes for a bridge club meeting. A young nurse from the hospital ordered coffee and mentioned far too casually that the new specialist was handsome in a very serious way. Emma pretended to check the card reader until her face stopped reacting. At noon, a supplier called about a delayed payment. At 2, Olivia Grant emailed asking if Emma had made progress on digital presence. At 4, the new cafe posted another polished video online and Emma watched it 3 times with the bitter fascination of someone studying the shape of her own problem. By closing time, the display case was half full, which meant half empty if she let herself think like an accountant. Emma locked the door, turned the sign to closed, and began wiping down tables while old memories moved through the shop like quiet customers refusing to leave. Caleb at 17, leaning over her journal. Caleb laughing with Rose while stealing frosting from a bowl. Caleb in the baseball field saying goodbye gently enough to hurt for years. She told herself people changed. She told herself she had changed too. She told herself she was not the girl who once wrote a list she could not finish. Then someone knocked on the glass. Emma looked up. For 1 second, time folded. Caleb Monroe stood outside Sweet Haven in a dark coat, one hand lifted uncertainly, his hair shorter than she remembered, his face older, leaner, more tired in a way that success could not hide. He was not 17 anymore, neither was she. But his eyes were the same impossible gray blue, and when they met hers through the window, the years between them did not disappear. They simply stood up. Emma could have pretended not to see him. She considered it for exactly 1 breath. Then the part of her raised by Rose Hayes unlocked the door, because you did not leave people standing outside a place meant for sweetness, even when they had once broken your heart with kindness. The bell gave its familiar sound as she opened it. Caleb stepped inside slowly, looking around the shop, taking in the pastel walls, the framed recipes, the display case, the old counter, the absence of Rose, and the woman Emma had become. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then he smiled, but the smile trembled at the edges. "Hi, Em." No one had called her that in years. Not like that. Not with a whole summer of baseball games, kitchen laughter, late-night dreams, and one quiet goodbye folded into 2 syllables. Emma crossed her arms, not because she was cold, but because her heart had moved too quickly and needed somewhere to hide. "Hello, Caleb." He looked at the display case, then back at her, and something like memory softened his face. "I was hoping," he said quietly, "that you still made vanilla cupcakes with lemon frosting." Emma felt the past open its eyes between them, and though she had spent years telling herself she had moved on, the ache in her chest whispered the truth she was not ready to say. Some loves do not end just because 2 people walk away. Caleb Monroe stood inside Sweet Haven Cupcakes as if he had stepped into a room that had kept breathing without him. The shop was smaller than memory and warmer than he deserved. Pastel shelves lined the walls, glass jars of sprinkles caught the light, and the old wooden counter still carried the faint knife marks Rose Hayes had left there before either of them understood how quickly time could take people. But other things had changed. The blue sign above the counter now read Sweet Haven instead of Rose Hayes Homemade Cakes. Cupcakes sat where whole cakes once cooled. Emma stood behind the counter in a soft pink apron, no longer the girl who used to sneak frosting onto his finger when her grandmother was not looking. She was beautiful in a way that made him ache before he had the right to notice. Not because she looked unchanged, she did not. There were fine lines of tiredness near her eyes now, and her smile, when it came, seemed to pass through more caution than it once had. But the girl he had loved still lived somewhere in the way she held herself when trying not to feel too much. Emma Hayes had always been gentle but never weak. Now she looked like a woman who had carried a dream through several storms and refused to set it down even when her arms trembled. "You came all the way here for a cupcake?" she asked. Her voice was polite enough for customers and cool enough for ex-boyfriends. Caleb accepted both. "I came here because I heard the shop was still open." "That sounds less flattering than you think." He glanced around, absorbing the framed recipe cards, the updated menu, the little chalkboard with the day's flavors written in her handwriting. "I mean, I'm glad it is." Emma looked away first, reaching for a small white bakery box. "We close at 5. "I know. Then you also know you're late." "I know that too." A ghost of a smile touched her mouth before she successfully hid it. Caleb saw it and felt 17 for one dangerous second. Back then, making Emma almost smile had felt like winning something sacred. Now it felt like touching a door that might still be locked. She opened the display case and pointed with the small silver tongs. "Vanilla with lemon frosting is $2.75. You remember that was my favorite? I remember inventory." He nodded slowly. "Of course." She placed one cupcake in the box with more care than the conversation deserved. He should have paid, taken the box, and left. That would have been respectful. That would have proved he understood time did not rewind just because a man returned with regret tucked beneath his coat, but his eyes moved to the corner table near the window, the old one. The table where he had once sketched logos in the margins of Emma's notebooks while she pretended not to love every crooked line. It was still there, though painted cream now, with a small vase of fresh daisies in the center. He looked back at her. "May I sit for a minute?" Emma hesitated. The shop was closed. The chairs were already turned halfway toward the tables for cleaning. The lights had dimmed to their evening softness, and every practical part of her life said no to old feelings. No to unnecessary conversations. No to the man who had once left gently and somehow made gentleness hurt worse. But Rose Hayes had raised her to offer food before judgment when possible, and Caleb was holding the cupcake box like it contained more than dessert. "1 minute," she said, "but I'm cleaning around you." Caleb sat at the corner table, and Emma went back to wiping the counter with far more focus than necessary. He opened the box but did not immediately eat. Instead, he looked at the cupcake as if memory had weight. Vanilla sponge, lemon frosting, a tiny curl of candied peel, the same flavor somehow, though the shop had changed and they had changed and Rose was gone. He picked it up, took one bite, and closed his eyes before he could stop himself. Emma saw. She wished she had not. "It still tastes like summer?" he said quietly. The cloth paused in Emma's hand. That was exactly what Rose used to say about lemon frosting. Emma turned toward the sink before he could see the memory cross her face. "It's my grandmother's recipe. With your twist." She looked back despite herself. He knew. Of course he knew. He had always noticed the details other people missed. The extra lemon zest, the uneven heart she piped onto cupcakes when nervous, the way she hummed under her breath when measuring sugar. That had been one of the dangerous things about loving Caleb Monroe. He made a girl feel seen before she knew what being seen could cost. "I heard about Rose," Caleb said. The softness in his voice changed the room. Emma kept her eyes on the towel in her hand. "Years ago?" "Yes." And you didn't call. There it was, not loud, not planned, just one sentence slipping out from the place she had tried to keep professional. Caleb lowered his gaze. I wrote 3 messages and deleted them. That's not the same thing. No, he said, it isn't. His honesty arrived too quickly for her anger to hold its shape comfortably. Emma put the towel down. My grandmother asked about you sometimes. Caleb's face tightened. She did? She said people who leave still count if they loved you properly while they were there. The words hurt both of them. Caleb looked toward the framed recipe cards on the wall. Rose's handwriting curled across them in fading ink, practical and tender at once. She was kind to me. She was kind to everyone. No, he said, looking back at Emma. She was kind like she had made a decision about it. Emma's throat ached because that was true. Outside the window, Main Street settled into evening. A few cars passed toward the hospital. The pharmacy sign flickered. Across the street, the new cafe still glowed with sleek pendant lights and a digital menu bright enough to be seen from the sidewalk. Caleb followed Emma's glance before she could hide it. That place is new. Tom Bennett's Cafe, she said. It opened 8 months ago. It looks busy? It usually is. She tried to say it lightly. She failed. Caleb heard the failure and did not pretend otherwise. Is Sweet Haven doing okay? He asked. Emma laughed once, short and defensive. That is a dangerous question to ask a small business owner after closing. I'm sorry? You always were polite before walking into painful subjects. He accepted that too. She regretted saying it, then decided not to. The truth had been waiting between them anyway. Caleb looked at the display case, the half-full trays, the old register, the handwritten menu, the folder near the counter with papers slightly sticking out. He did not read the label, but he saw enough to understand worry lived here. Emma followed his gaze and stepped in front of the folder. It was a small movement, too small for most people. Not for Caleb. He remembered her doing that in high school whenever she wanted to hide a bad grade she planned to fix before anyone could worry. What's in the folder? He asked gently. None of your business? The answer came too fast. He nodded. Fair. That made her more irritated than if he had pushed, because part of her, the part exhausted from carrying everything alone, almost wanted him to ask again. It's investor stuff, she said finally, hating the surrender in her own voice. Caleb did not move. Are you looking for funding? I was. Was? Still am. Maybe. I don't know. She rubbed her forehead, then dropped her hand. I need updates, equipment, better packaging, a website, online ordering, photos that don't look like I took them in panic under fluorescent light. Despite everything, Caleb's mouth lifted. I remember those photos. You do not. You once took 12 pictures of a cupcake and somehow made all of them look surprised. Emma stared at him. Then, against her will, she laughed. It came out small, rusty, and real. Caleb smiled, and for a second the years thinned. The old table, the old counter, Rose humming in the kitchen, Emma pretending to hate his sketches, Caleb looking at her like she was already the most important place he knew how to return to. Then the moment passed, and Emma looked down, almost angry that laughter had betrayed her so easily. I don't have time to be bad at digital marketing, she said. I'm already busy being bad at sleeping. Caleb's smile faded into concern. You built something beautiful here? Beautiful isn't the same as sustainable. No, he said, but it's not nothing. She looked at him carefully. There was no pity in his face. That helped. Pity would have made her close the register, the conversation, and possibly the door. Instead, he looked thoughtful, almost like the boy who used to redesign school flyers for fun before medicine claimed his future. Do you have a website? He asked. Emma gave him a look. Do you see a website hiding under the cupcake liners? I could help, he said. The sentence landed badly, and he knew it immediately. Emma's posture changed. No, I didn't mean... I know what you meant. No, Em, I don't think you do. Her eyes flashed at the nickname. He corrected himself. Emma, I'm not offering charity. What are you offering? He looked around the shop, then at her. Design, structure, a site people can order from, photos, a menu that tells your story, something practical. She folded her arms. You're a doctor. I was a designer first, he said quietly. The old truth moved through the shop like the smell of something almost forgotten. Emma remembered the blue ink logos, the festival posters, the drawings in the margins of her journals. She remembered Caleb saying he liked medicine because it healed bodies, but design because it helped people understand what something meant. For a moment, she did not know whether to answer the man in front of her or the boy still living inside his voice. Caleb placed money for the cupcake on the table, more than enough, but not absurdly more. I'll be at the hospital all month, he said. If you ever want help, I'll give you exactly that. Help. Nothing else unless you ask. Then he stood, leaving the little white box empty behind him, and a possibility Emma had not invited sitting quietly in its place. The next morning, Caleb Monroe walked into Willow Creek Memorial Hospital wearing a white coat, a visitor badge, and the strange discomfort of being treated like a man who had never belonged to the town outside its doors. The lobby had been renovated since he left. The walls were brighter, the chairs newer, the reception desk curved in a way that tried very hard to look modern. But the smell was the same: antiseptic, coffee, nervous waiting, and old prayers whispered by people who had run out of control. A nurse recognized his name before his face. "Dr. Monroe, we're honored to have you here." Caleb smiled politely, thanked her, and wondered why honor felt heavier in the place where he used to be just Caleb. Dr. Nathan Reeves, the hospital director, met him outside the training room with a firm handshake and visible relief. "We've been looking forward to this for months," he said. "Our team needs exactly what you bring." Caleb knew what that meant professionally. He had built a reputation in his specialty through long hours, difficult cases, and years of becoming the kind of doctor other doctors called when answers ran thin. He was proud of that. He had paid for that life with sleep, distance, birthdays missed, and a version of himself that used to draw logos in blue ink. But when Dr. Reeves opened the training room door and everyone turned toward him, Caleb felt the old town watching from beneath the new respect. The training began well. Caleb knew how to teach under pressure. He explained protocols clearly, answered questions without arrogance, and moved through case studies with the calm precision that had made him valuable in bigger hospitals than this one. The staff listened closely. Some took notes. Some watched him with the cautious hope of people who wanted to believe expertise could make their hardest days less frightening. By noon, he had earned the room. That should have satisfied him. Instead, during a break, he looked out a narrow hospital window toward Main Street and found himself searching for the pastel sign of Sweet Haven. He had not slept well. Emma's shop had followed him back to the small guest apartment the hospital had arranged above an old medical office. The smell of lemon frosting, the framed recipe cards, the way she had said, "You didn't call." He had faced grieving families, emergency complications, hospital boards, and career decisions that could have changed entire departments. Yet one sentence from Emma Hayes had undone him more efficiently than any crisis. Because she was right. He had known Rose died. He had wanted to write, and then he had chosen the cowardice of not knowing what to say. At lunch, Dr. Reeves invited him to the hospital cafeteria, but Caleb declined and walked outside instead. Willow Creek was small enough that memory could ambush a man in 3 blocks. The barber shop still had the same striped pole. The library steps still carried a crack near the left railing. The movie theater was now a community arts center, but the marquee remained. He passed the alley where he and Emma had once hidden from a sudden summer storm after school, laughing so hard they could barely breathe. He stopped before the memory could become too vivid. Then he kept walking because standing still in Willow Creek seemed to make the past louder. He ended up across the street from Sweet Haven without admitting to himself he had chosen the route. Through the window, Emma was helping a customer choose a dozen cupcakes from the display case. She smiled at the customer, and Caleb saw the difference immediately. That smile was real, but practiced for business. Kind, warm, and slightly tired. The smile she had almost given him the night before had been smaller, rougher, and far more dangerous to his heart. He stood there long enough to feel ridiculous, then stepped back just as Maggie Collins came out of the flower shop next door, carrying a bucket of tulips. Maggie saw him and stopped. "Well," she said, "the prodigal doctor returns." Caleb winced. "Hi, Maggie." She looked him up and down with the merciless efficiency of a best friend. "You look successful." "Thank you." That was not entirely a compliment. I suspected. Maggie shifted the tulips to her other hip. "You saw her?" It was not a question. Caleb looked toward Sweet Haven's window. "Last night? And you survived? Barely? Good. That means she was polite." Caleb let out a breath that almost became a laugh. "She has every reason to be angry." Maggie's expression softened, though not enough to become easy on him. "She's not just angry." "I know." "No, you probably don't." He accepted that. Maggie glanced through the window at Emma, then back at Caleb. "She understood why you left. That was always the worst part. If you had been selfish, she could have hated you properly. But you were young, ambitious, scared, and noble in that terrible way teenagers are when they think breaking their own hearts means they are doing the right thing." Caleb looked down. "We thought we were being kind. You were being 17. Inside Sweet Haven, Emma saw Maggie talking to Caleb and immediately pretended to rearrange cupcake labels. She could feel them through the window like sunlight on skin. Ridiculous. She was 32 years old, a business owner, a woman with invoices, supplier calls, and an oven that made a suspicious sound every time it reached 350 degrees. She was not a girl hiding behind a locker because Caleb Monroe had looked at her during chemistry class. Still, when Maggie came in 5 minutes later wearing the expression of someone trying not to look guilty, Emma pointed the tongs at her. "No," Maggie blinked innocently. "I didn't say anything. You were about to. I was about to say the tulips are fresh. You were about to say Caleb looks good." Maggie placed the bucket on the counter. "The tulips are fresh and Caleb looks devastatingly guilty." Emma groaned. "Maggie, what? I'm your friend. It is my duty to report relevant weather conditions." "He's not weather." "No," Maggie said, leaning on the counter. "He's a season you thought was over." Emma hated that enough to know it was accurate. "I'm not doing this," Emma said. "Doing what?" "Whatever story everyone in this town is already writing in their heads." Maggie's face softened. "Emma, people are not writing the story. They remember the first one." "That was a long time ago?" "Yes." "And we were kids?" "Yes." "And people grow up." "Exactly." Emma looked at her sharply. Maggie lifted both hands. "I'm not saying fall into his arms. I'm saying maybe do not confuse protecting yourself with punishing yourself." Emma turned away and began boxing cupcakes for a pickup order. "I'm not punishing myself. You almost bit my head off when I said his name. That was reflex. Reflex comes from somewhere." Emma placed a cupcake into the box too firmly, leaving a smear of frosting on the side. Maggie noticed but said nothing. After a moment, Emma spoke more quietly. "He left, Maggie. I know. He had reasons. Good reasons. I have repeated them to myself for years, like a decent, mature person. And it still felt like being left." That truth settled between them, soft but undeniable. Maggie reached for a napkin and wiped the frosting smear from the box. "Then maybe that is the conversation you never had?" Emma shook her head. "What would it change? Maybe nothing." "That's encouraging. Or maybe it would stop the past from making decisions without you." Emma looked at the framed recipe cards on the wall, at Rose's handwriting. Her grandmother had never been afraid of difficult conversations. She used to say silence was useful for cakes, not for hearts. That afternoon, Caleb returned to the hospital training room and taught a session on emergency decision-making with a steadiness that fooled everyone except himself. He demonstrated procedures, corrected technique, and encouraged a nervous young nurse with such gentleness that Dr. Reeves later clapped him on the shoulder and said, "You have a gift for making people less afraid." Caleb thanked him, but the words followed him. Less afraid. He could make residents less afraid during critical care simulations. He could make families less afraid when explaining a diagnosis. Yet he had never learned how to make Emma less afraid that he would leave again. After the final session, he went back to the guest apartment, opened his laptop, and searched for Sweet Haven Cupcakes. No real website appeared, only a sparse social media page with irregular posts, a few customer photos, outdated hours on an old directory listing, and one blurry picture of vanilla cupcakes that looked far less beautiful than they tasted. Caleb stared at the screen, and a different part of him woke up, the part that noticed spacing, color, story, clarity. The part that had once drawn logos because he believed design could help people feel something before they understood why. Medicine had become his calling, but design had been his first language of hope. He did not want to use Emma's struggle as a doorway back into her life. The thought disgusted him enough to make him close the laptop. Then he opened it again. There was a difference, he told himself, between manipulation and usefulness. But the line could become dangerous if the helpful person secretly wanted to be loved for helping. So he wrote an email instead of showing up uninvited. He kept it short, professional, no nostalgia, no nickname. "Emma, if you ever decide you want help building a simple site for Sweet Haven, I can do it around my hospital schedule. No charge, no pressure, no expectations." Caleb, he read it 10 times before sending. Emma saw the email after closing while balancing the register with numbers that refused to become comforting. She read it once, then put the phone face down, then picked it up and read it again. No charge, no pressure, no expectations. The words annoyed her because they were exactly the words that made refusal harder. She opened the investment folder and stared at Olivia Grant's latest note. "Digital presence is not optional anymore. Customers need to find you before they can fall in love with you." Emma rubbed her forehead. She did not want Caleb's help. She needed a website. Both truths sat across from each other like enemies. That night, while searching the storage closet for extra cupcake boxes, Emma knocked over a shoebox of old journals. Loose papers slid across the floor, receipts, recipe experiments, sketches, senior year notes folded into squares. One blue notebook fell open near her foot. Emma picked it up and felt the breath leave her chest. There, on a page yellowed slightly with age, was Caleb's teenage drawing of a logo, a ridiculous little cupcake with wings above the words Sweet Haven. Below it, in her own handwriting, she had written, "Maybe one day." Emma sat down on the storage room floor, holding the notebook as the years came back in color. Caleb had believed in the shop before it existed, and that was the first reason she almost wrote back. Emma did not answer Caleb's email that night. She wrote 3 replies, deleted all of them, then closed her laptop with the kind of force usually reserved for people pretending they were not emotional. The blue notebook stayed on the kitchen table in her small apartment, open to the page where 17-year-old Caleb had drawn a winged cupcake and the words Sweet Haven in uneven letters. It was ridiculous. It was sentimental. It was also proof that he had seen something in her before she had known how to build it. That made accepting his help feel less like business and more like opening a door she had spent years painting shut. By morning, practicality had become louder than pride. The freezer made its strange grinding sound again. 2 online customers called asking if they could order through a website and sounded surprised when Emma said no. A woman from the next county messaged asking for a menu, then stopped responding after Emma sent photos one by one like a person trapped in 2011. At noon, Olivia Grant forwarded a link to Tom Bennett's cafe page with the note, "This is what local customers expect now. Not copying, visibility." Emma stared at the word visibility for a long time. Then she opened Caleb's email and typed only one sentence. "You can look at the shop after closing. Professional only." Caleb arrived at Sweet Haven at 6:30 with his laptop, a camera bag, a small notebook, and an expression carefully arranged to contain no victory. Emma appreciated that more than she wanted to. She had left the lights on but turned the sign to closed, and the shop looked softer after hours. Less like a business fighting to survive and more like the dream it had been before numbers started circling it. Caleb stepped inside and stopped near the door. "Professional only?" he said. Emma nodded. "Exactly. No nostalgia? None. No painful high school memories, especially not those." He looked at the corner table for half a second. "Understood." They lasted 9 minutes. It was not Emma's fault. Caleb opened his notebook and asked what story she wanted the homepage to tell. She answered, "Cupcakes, custom orders, local pickup, and maybe catering." He wrote that down, then looked up. "That is what the site needs to do." I asked what it should tell. Emma frowned. "That sounds dangerously like nostalgia. It sounds like branding. You used to say that when you were about to draw something dramatic in the margins of my biology notes." Caleb's mouth curved before he could stop it. "You kept those?" Emma looked away too late. His smile softened. She pointed at him with a pen. "Professional." He lifted both hands. "Professional." But something had already shifted. Not into romance, not yet, but into a familiar rhythm neither of them had practiced and both remembered too well. Caleb began asking questions and Emma found herself answering before she could overthink. Why cupcakes instead of full cakes? Because cupcakes let people buy one small celebration without needing an occasion. Why lemon frosting on vanilla? Because Rose said sadness needed brightness, not just sweetness. Why Sweet Haven? Because Emma had wanted the shop to feel like somewhere people could carry joy out in a box. Caleb wrote every answer down. Then he took photographs, not the rushed, awkward kind Emma took under fluorescent lights while praying the frosting looked edible. He moved cupcakes near the window, adjusted the angle of a napkin, asked her to dust one tray with powdered sugar, then waited for the softest evening light to land across the glass case. Emma watched him work and felt the old surprise return. Caleb had always seen composition in ordinary things, the curve of a frosting swirl, the shine on a lemon peel, the warmth of Rose's handwriting on a recipe card. He did not make the shop look different. He made it look noticed. "That one," he said, showing her the camera screen. Emma leaned closer before remembering distance was supposed to be part of the agreement. The photograph showed a vanilla cupcake with lemon frosting beside Rose's framed recipe card. Behind it, blurred but visible, was the old wooden counter. It looked warm. It looked honest. It looked like something worth visiting. Emma stared at the image, throat tight. "I didn't know it could look like that." Caleb looked at her, not the photo. "It always did." The words were soft enough to pass as professional if neither of them examined them too closely. They worked until 9. Caleb created a simple site structure: homepage, menu, custom orders, catering, story, contact. Emma protested the story page immediately. "No one reads those." "I do." "You are medically overeducated and emotionally suspicious?" "Maybe, but customers like knowing why a place exists." Emma crossed her arms. "It exists because rent exists. And because Rose Hayes taught you that food remembers love." The room went quiet. Emma looked at him sharply. "You remember that?" "I remember a lot of things," Caleb said. His voice carried no performance, only truth. Emma turned toward the counter and began stacking empty boxes that did not need stacking. Caleb let her have the silence. That was new, or maybe it was old and she had forgotten. He did not rush to soften what he had said. He did not fill the space because discomfort made him nervous. He waited while she decided whether to retreat or remain. Finally, Emma spoke without looking at him. She used to ask about you. I know, you told me. She asked because she thought you would come back one day. Caleb's hand stilled over the keyboard. And did you? Emma's laugh was small and sad. I told her people do not come back just because we keep a light on. Caleb looked down at the unfinished homepage. The words Sweet Haven Cupcakes glowed at the top of the screen in a temporary font he already hated. I should have come back sooner, he said. Emma closed her eyes briefly. Caleb, I know, professional. No, she said, finally turning. I was going to say, don't make that sentence too easy. He absorbed that. She continued, quieter now. You were building a life, I was building this one. Maybe we both made choices, maybe we both had reasons, but I stayed here with the memories, and sometimes it felt like you got to become new while I became a museum. That sentence hurt him because it was honest in a way he had not earned but needed. You were never a museum, he said. Emma smiled without humor. You didn't see me after Rose died. I kept everything the same for almost a year. Same curtains, same cake stands, same menu, same old blue sign. I was terrified that if I changed anything, it would mean I was letting her disappear. She looked around the shop. Then I changed almost everything and felt guilty about that too. Caleb closed the laptop halfway, giving her his full attention. Emma, changing the shop didn't erase her. I know that now. Do you? She looked at the framed recipes. Some days, he stood and walked toward the recipe wall, stopping far enough away not to invade what felt sacred. What if the site made that the point? Emma frowned. What? That Sweet Haven is not a replacement for Rose's shop. It is what her love became in your hands. The sentence settled into the room with the softness of flour through a sieve. Emma wanted to reject it because it came from Caleb, and Caleb had a dangerous talent for naming the thing beneath the thing, but she could not reject it because it was true. Sweet Haven was not a betrayal. It was inheritance in motion. She sat slowly at the corner table across from him. Fine, she said. Caleb blinked. Fine? One story page. His face brightened, then he controlled it immediately. No dramatic language? Define dramatic? No phrases like sugar-dusted destiny? He winced. I would never. You absolutely would have at 17. At 17, I also thought a cupcake with wings was strong visual branding. Emma reached into the bag beside her and pulled out the blue notebook. Caleb went completely still. She placed it on the table between them. You mean this cupcake with wings? For a moment, he looked almost afraid to touch it. Then he opened the notebook carefully as if the pages might bruise. There it was, his old drawing, crooked and earnest, the first version of Sweet Haven. Caleb ran one finger near the edge of the page without touching the ink. I can't believe you kept this. I keep too much, Emma said. No. He looked up. You keep what mattered. Her heart moved in a way she did not authorize. She reached for the notebook, intending to close it, but the page shifted and revealed something tucked behind it. A folded sheet of paper, yellowed at the edges. Emma recognized it before Caleb did. Her stomach tightened. She reached for it quickly, but Caleb had already seen the title written in her younger handwriting. Reasons I Love Caleb. The air left the room. Neither of them moved. Emma snatched the paper and pressed it against her chest. That is not part of the website. Caleb's face had gone soft, stunned, and carefully still. I know. It's old. I know. It was stupid. No, he said immediately. That single word stopped her. Emma looked at him with color high in her cheeks. You don't get to make it beautiful because it embarrasses me. I'm not. You are looking at me like I handed you a wounded bird. His mouth trembled, not quite smiling. I'm trying very hard not to ask what it says. Good. I won't. Good. The paper felt warm against her palm. She had started the list the night after they ended things, written 3 reasons, cried over the 4th, and shoved it away because loving someone who was leaving felt like volunteering for a storm. She had never finished it. She had never thrown it away. Caleb closed the notebook gently. I kept something too, he said. Emma's eyes narrowed with suspicion and fear. What? Not here. Convenient? It's at the apartment. Of course it is. He looked at her with a tenderness that made joking difficult. The original sign sketch, not the winged cupcake. Another one. The one I made after you told me you wanted the shop to feel like a safe place. Emma's breath caught. I don't remember that? I do. The room seemed to tilt toward the past again, but this time Emma did not step back immediately. The laptop sat open beside them, the website unfinished, the homepage waiting for words they had not yet chosen. On the table lay the blue notebook, Caleb's old drawing, and the folded list Emma refused to let him read. Outside, Main Street had gone quiet. Inside, Sweet Haven glowed with the kind of light that made almost forgotten things brave enough to return. Emma finally placed the folded list inside the notebook and closed it. We are not talking about that tonight, she said. Caleb nodded. Okay, and we are finishing the website. Yes. She looked at him for one long second. But tomorrow, she added, you can show me the sign sketch. Caleb's smile came slowly, full of relief and ache. Tomorrow then. The next day, Emma spent most of the morning pretending the folded list did not exist. It sat inside the blue notebook beneath the counter, exactly where she had hidden it after Caleb left the night before. Every time the bell rang, every time she boxed cupcakes, every time a customer asked whether the lemon frosting had always been this good, Emma felt the weight of those old words waiting below her like a heartbeat under floorboards. Reasons I love Caleb. 4 words written by a girl who had believed love could be organized into a list and survived by being folded away. At 32, Emma knew better. Love did not stay where you put it. Maggie arrived just after noon with a vase of white daisies and the face of a woman who already knew too much. Emma pointed at her immediately. No? Maggie stopped mid-step. I brought flowers? You brought curiosity disguised as flowers? That is unfair. Curiosity usually costs extra. Emma took the vase anyway and placed it near the register. Maggie leaned on the counter and lowered her voice. How did website night go? Professionally. Maggie smiled. Oh no. Emma narrowed her eyes. What does that mean? It means it absolutely did not go professionally. Emma busied herself wiping the counter. We discussed pages, photos, branding, menu structure, and ordering options. Scandalous. He found the old notebook. Maggie's smile faded into something softer. The Caleb notebook? It was not a Caleb notebook. It had at least 12 drawings from him, 3 pressed flowers from dates, and that dramatic list you started after graduation. Emma froze. Maggie lifted both hands. I was your best friend. I am legally required to remember your emotional evidence. Emma closed her eyes. He saw the title. Maggie whispered, oh, honey. He didn't read it, Emma said quickly. That is something. He also said he kept the original sign sketch. Maggie's brows rose. The one he made after you told him the shop should feel like a safe place? Emma stared at her. You remember that too? I remember everything you pretended was no big deal. Emma looked toward the framed recipe cards, feeling suddenly surrounded by witnesses. It was high school. It was love, Maggie said gently. Immature, unfinished, badly timed love. But love? Emma swallowed. That does not mean it should come back? No, Maggie said. It means you should find out whether it ever truly left. At the hospital, Caleb was having equal difficulty concentrating. He taught a morning session on diagnostic decision-making and caught himself drawing a small cupcake icon in the margin of his training notes. A nurse asked whether the sketch represented a new medical symbol, and Caleb nearly dropped his pen. By lunch, he had given up pretending his thoughts were disciplined. He returned to the guest apartment, opened the leather folder he had carried through 6 cities and 3 hospital systems, and removed a sheet of thick paper protected inside a plastic sleeve, the original Sweet Haven sign sketch. Not the winged cupcake, the other one. He had drawn it the summer before senior year after Emma told him she wished her grandmother's shop could feel like a place where people walked in carrying ordinary sadness and left with something a little lighter. The sketch was simple, soft rounded letters, a tiny roofline over the word Haven, a small heart hidden inside the swirl of a cupcake. At 17, Caleb had not understood how intimate it was to design a dream for someone else. He had only known that Emma's dreams made him want to build something with his hands. Medicine later gave him a different kind of purpose, but this drawing remained the first proof that he had wanted to help Emma's future exist. That evening, he arrived at Sweet Haven 10 minutes after closing, carrying the sketch in a plain portfolio and a nervousness he would rather have faced in an operating room. Emma had left the door unlocked for him, which felt small and enormous at once. She was at the corner table with her laptop open, wearing a cream sweater and the same guarded expression she used whenever something mattered too much. Professional only? He asked. She looked at the portfolio. You brought emotional contraband? I did. At least you admit it. I'm trying to build a reputation for honesty. That would be a new brand direction for you. He smiled because she said it without cruelty. Caleb placed the portfolio on the table and opened it. Emma's face changed before she could stop it. The sketch was older than she expected, the pencil line slightly faded, the paper careful and worn at the edges. Sweet Haven curved across the page in a style that somehow felt both young and right. Not polished enough for a corporate designer, too sincere to be dismissed. Emma touched the corner of the paper with one finger. I thought the winged cupcake was the only one. No, Caleb said. I made this after you told me what the shop should feel like. I don't remember saying that. I do. She sat down slowly. For years, Emma had believed she was the keeper of their shared past because she was the one who stayed. She kept the journals, the corners of notes, the recipes, the old photographs, the table where he once drew beside her. Caleb had gone into the world, becoming impressive, becoming necessary, becoming a man other people introduced with titles. Yet here was proof that he had taken a piece of her dream with him. Not loudly, not in a way that helped her pay bills or mourn Rose, but he had kept it. That made her anger complicated in a way she resented. "Why?" she asked. Caleb did not pretend not to understand. "Because I couldn't keep you." The answer struck too directly. Emma looked up. He continued, voice low. "That sounds selfish? Maybe it was. But after we ended things, I kept thinking if I held on to the drawing, then some part of me had not completely walked away from the life where you existed every day." Emma's eyes burned. "You did walk away." "Yes." "You chose the scholarship." "Yes." "You chose medical school." "Yes." "You chose a life that kept getting farther from here." "Yes." "And I chose to understand it so well that no one ever asked how much it hurt." Caleb's face tightened, but he did not defend himself. That restraint mattered. A younger Caleb would have explained, not because he was cruel, but because he was afraid of being misunderstood. This Caleb let the misunderstanding remain where it belonged, as part of the damage. "I should have asked," he said. "Asked what?" "How much it hurt." Emma looked away first. The bakery lights reflected softly against the window, turning Main Street into a dark mirror behind them. "It would not have changed anything?" "Maybe not." "Then why does it matter?" "Because you should not have had to be noble alone." The sentence landed exactly where she had not wanted him to reach. Emma stood and walked to the recipe wall, pretending to straighten a frame that was already straight. "My grandmother said we were doing the right thing." "Rose said that?" "She said love should never become a cage." Caleb closed his eyes briefly. "That sounds like her." Emma turned back, tears bright but controlled. "She was right. I know she was right, but sometimes I hated that being loving meant letting you go and then being praised for how gracefully I bled." Caleb's eyes filled with quiet pain. "I am sorry." This time she did not tell him not to say it. She only sat down again, tired from the honesty, but not sorry it had arrived. Caleb turned the sketch gently toward her. "I don't want this to pull you backward." "Then why bring it?" "Because the site should belong to you completely. If any piece of this old idea still feels true, use it. If it hurts, we leave it in the past." Emma studied him. "No speech about destiny?" "No." "No telling me you knew all along?" "No." "No using teenage sketches to convince me we are meant to be?" His smile was sad. "No, I have learned that meant to be is not as important as willing to stay." Emma looked down quickly, but not fast enough to hide what that did to her. Willing to stay. The words touched the quietest fear she carried, not that Caleb did not care, not even that he had stopped loving her, but that his life would always stretch toward places where Willow Creek became too small, where Sweet Haven became nostalgic but not necessary, where Emma became the girl he remembered with tenderness on hard nights before returning to a world that needed him more loudly. She folded her hands on the table. "Are you?" she asked. Caleb's expression changed. "Am I what? Willing to stay?" He did not answer quickly. That frightened her, but it also made the answer feel real when it came. "I don't know what staying looks like yet," he said. Emma's throat tightened. "But I know I am tired of building a life around leaving before anyone can ask me to belong." She looked at him carefully. "I need more than poetic exhaustion." "I know. You're here for 1 month." "Yes." "The hospital is temporary?" "For now." "And after that?" He breathed in slowly. "I am talking to Dr. Reeves about possibilities." Emma's heart moved before she gave it permission. "You didn't tell me that." "I didn't want it to sound like a promise I had not earned." That answer was inconveniently good. She hated him a little for learning emotional responsibility at the exact moment her defenses were tired. "So what are we doing?" she asked. Caleb looked at the laptop, the sketch, the old notebook still tucked near her elbow. "We are building your website." "That is not what I meant." "I know." He met her eyes. "But maybe building the one thing we can name is safer than pretending we know what to call everything else." For a while, they worked in a quiet that felt less like avoidance and more like shelter. Emma scanned the sign sketch. Caleb cleaned the lines digitally, preserving the softness of the original while making it usable for the site. They tried fonts, colors, and homepage layouts. Emma rejected anything that looked too glossy. Caleb rejected anything that made the shop look smaller than it was. Together, they found a version that carried both Rose and Emma. Old warmth, new clarity. When the first draft appeared on the screen, Emma stared at it with her hand over her mouth. "It looks like what I wanted," she whispered. Caleb's voice was equally soft. "It looks like you." She turned toward him then, and the distance between them felt thinner than it had any right to be. The old list was still hidden in the notebook, the one she had never finished. The one that embarrassed her because it proved love had survived longer than pride wanted to admit. Caleb did not ask to read it. He did not even look toward it. That restraint, more than curiosity would have, made her want to trust him with one corner of the truth. "I started the list the night after we ended," she said. Caleb went completely still. "I only wrote 3 reasons." His voice was careful. "What were they?" Emma looked back at the glowing website draft, at the old sketch reborn on the screen. "Not tonight," she said, but this time she smiled through the ache. "Maybe one day I'll finish it." The first draft of the Sweet Haven website changed the way Emma saw her own shop. For years, she had looked at the cracked corner near the ceiling, the old display case that fogged when the weather shifted, the register that sometimes froze between transactions, and the shelves she had repainted twice because new paint was cheaper than new furniture. But on Caleb's screen, the shop did not look tired. It looked intimate. It looked warm. It looked like a place where recipes had roots and frosting had a memory. Emma hated how much that mattered to her, because it meant she had needed someone else's eyes to remember what she was fighting for. By Monday morning, the homepage was still unfinished, but it already had a softness that felt like Sweet Haven without turning it into a museum. The old sign sketch had become part of the logo, cleaned up, but not stripped of its handmade heart. Rose's recipe cards appeared in one section. Emma's cupcake photos finally looked like something a customer would drive across town to taste. Caleb had added buttons for custom orders, local pickup, seasonal boxes, and event catering. He had also created a draft page titled Our Story. Emma stared at it longer than she meant to. Our Story. She wondered whether he knew how dangerous those words were. At 10, Olivia Grant arrived for their scheduled consultation wearing a camel coat, polished boots, and the kind of calm confidence Emma associated with people who never lost receipts or cried in storage rooms. Olivia was not unkind. That almost made her harder to handle. She had a sharp eye, a practical voice, and a way of seeing weakness in a business without making it sound like a personal failure. Still, Emma felt nervous as she watched Olivia look around the shop. The cupcakes were arranged perfectly. The coffee was fresh, the overdue invoice was hidden, and Caleb, mercifully, was at the hospital. Olivia walked slowly through the shop, studying the display case, the packaging, the wall of framed recipes, the corner table, and the chalkboard menu. "This place has emotional value," she said. Emma braced herself. "In a good way, or in the way investors use before saying no?" Olivia smiled slightly. "In a good way, if you know how to translate it." And Emma folded her arms. "I'm not interested in turning my grandmother into a marketing angle." "Good," Olivia replied, "because customers can smell exploitation almost as quickly as they smell butter." Emma blinked. That was not the answer she expected. Olivia sat at the corner table and opened a notebook. "What you need is not a personality transplant. You need structure." "That sounds less terrifying." "It should. Your problem is not that Sweet Haven lacks identity. It is that customers who would love it cannot find it easily, order from it easily, or understand quickly why it matters." Emma glanced toward the laptop behind the counter. "I'm working on a website." Olivia's eyes sharpened. "Good. Show me." Emma hesitated for only a second before turning the screen around. When Olivia saw the draft homepage, her expression changed from polite evaluation to genuine interest. "This is strong," Olivia said. Emma tried not to look relieved. "It's not finished." "It doesn't need to be finished to be clear." Olivia leaned closer. "The logo has warmth. The photography is excellent. The story page could become your anchor if written carefully. Online ordering will help immediately. Custom event boxes could be a strong revenue stream." Emma listened, stunned by the absence of dismissal. Then Olivia said, "Who designed this?" Emma's hand tightened around her coffee mug. "A friend." The word felt too small and too intimate at the same time. Olivia noticed the hesitation but did not chase it. "Your friend understands restraint. That matters." Emma almost laughed. Caleb Monroe had not always understood restraint. At 17, he had drawn dramatic cupcake wings and written slogans like small cakes, big dreams in the margins of her notebooks. But the man rebuilding her website now had learned to leave breathing room. On a page, in a conversation, in a heart he did not want to rush. Emma looked at the logo again. "He understands the shop," she said quietly. Olivia heard the layered meaning and wisely returned to business. "Then let's talk about investment." The offer was not as large as Emma had secretly hoped, but it was real. Enough for a new freezer, better packaging, photography updates, a local ad campaign, a redesigned ordering system, and a small renovation that would not strip the shop's character. But Olivia had conditions: monthly revenue targets, expanded hours during seasonal peaks. A stronger catering strategy, consistent digital content, a clearer product line instead of Emma trying to make every recipe for every person who asked nicely. Growth requires decisions, Olivia said. Some of them will feel like saying no to people who are used to your yes. Emma looked toward the kitchen. Rose had almost never said no. She made birthday cakes for families who paid late, pies for church raffles, cookies for grieving neighbors, and cupcakes for children who pressed coins onto the counter with sticky fingers and hopeful eyes. Emma had inherited that generosity, but she had also inherited the exhaustion that came when love had no boundaries. "I don't want to lose what made this place special," she said. Olivia's voice softened. "Then define what is sacred before the pressure comes. Not everything old is sacred. Not everything new is betrayal." The sentence stayed with Emma long after Olivia left. At the hospital, Caleb spent the same morning training nurses on a complex procedure while trying not to check his phone every 10 minutes. He had no right to expect updates from Emma. He had helped with the site because she needed a site, not because he needed gratitude. Still, when his phone finally buzzed during a break and her name appeared, his heart betrayed every professional boundary he had claimed to respect. "Olivia liked the website," Emma wrote. Then a second message. She said the designer understands restraint. "Don't let it go to your head." Caleb smiled so openly that a resident across the hall asked if the training results had improved. He typed back, "Too late. My head is enormous now. Impossible to fit through hospital doors." Emma answered after a minute, "Tragic. The town will mourn." He laughed softly, then stood alone near the vending machines with a warmth in his chest that felt dangerously like hope. For a few lines, they were not exes navigating old pain. They were Emma and Caleb again, exchanging humor in the small space between responsibilities. Then Dr. Reeves approached with an envelope in his hand and a serious expression. "Caleb," he said, "do you have a minute?" Just like that, the future changed shape. The offer from the city hospital arrived formally that afternoon. Not from Willow Creek Memorial, but from the medical center Caleb had worked with before. Larger, better funded, prestigious, and prepared to create a leadership role around his specialty. The salary was more than generous. The research support was significant. The professional reach was everything a younger Caleb would have considered proof that leaving had been worth it. He read the email twice in the hospital office Dr. Reeves had loaned him. Then he looked out the window toward Main Street. Once opportunity had always looked like distance. Now distance looked like a question he no longer wanted to answer too quickly. Dr. Reeves did not pressure him, but he did not pretend not to know what the offer meant. "They want you back," he said. Caleb set the paper down. "They want what I can build for them. That is usually what institutions mean when they say they want us." Caleb looked at him. Willow Creek Memorial could not match the salary, it could not match the equipment, the title, the research network, or the professional applause, but it had patients who drove 40 minutes for specialists. It had nurses hungry to learn. It had a community hospital that needed help becoming more than a place people passed through on their way to bigger care. And it had Main Street outside the window. That evening, Caleb went to Sweet Haven with the intention of telling Emma about the offer before she heard it from someone else. He found her in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, testing a new lavender honey cupcake for Olivia's proposed spring menu. The air smelled floral, warm, and uncertain. Emma looked up when he entered through the back door she had started leaving unlocked during website nights. "I may have overcommitted to innovation," she said, holding up a cupcake with suspicious purple frosting. Caleb smiled. "That cupcake looks like it has a secret. It tastes like soap and regret." He laughed, and for a moment the evening felt easy. They worked on the site for an hour before he told her. Not because he meant to hide it, but because watching Emma edit the story page made silence tempting. She wrote about Rose without making grief decorative. She wrote about the shop as a place for small celebrations, quiet comfort, and cupcakes that carried a little memory in every box. Caleb helped move sentences, adjust headings, and choose photos. They argued for 7 minutes over whether "Where Sweet Things Feel Like Home" was too sentimental. Emma said yes. Caleb said only slightly. They kept it anyway under protest from her and satisfaction from him. Then his phone lit up on the table with the medical center's name. Emma saw it before he could turn the screen over. Something in her expression shifted. "What's that?" Caleb went still. He could lie with a partial truth. He could say it was work. It was work. But old wounds had been built from incomplete honesty, and he refused to lay another brick. "It's an offer," he said. Emma's face became unreadable. "From the hospital?" "A hospital? Here?" He looked at her. "No." The bakery seemed to quiet around them. Emma looked down at the laptop where the Sweet Haven homepage glowed with the logo he had helped revive from their past. Of course, the world outside Willow Creek still wanted Caleb Monroe. Of course, the man who came back with tenderness and design skills and careful apologies still had doors opening elsewhere. She hated that her first feeling was not pride for him. It was fear. Then anger at herself for the fear. Then old grief, waking as if it had only been pretending to sleep. "When would you leave?" she asked. "I haven't accepted it." "That's not what I asked." He breathed in slowly. "They want an answer soon." Emma nodded, each movement careful. The girl she had been would have smiled bravely and said she understood. The woman she had become was tired of bleeding gracefully. She closed the laptop halfway. "Do you always come back just long enough to remind me what it feels like before you leave again?" Caleb flinched, not because the question was unfair, but because it was the exact wound he feared he was reopening. "Emma, no," she said softly. "Not tonight." And for the first time since he had returned, she was the one who walked away, leaving him alone in the warm little shop with the future glowing on a half-closed screen. For 2 days after Caleb told Emma about the offer, Sweet Haven became almost aggressively practical. Emma answered his messages about the website with short, useful sentences and no softness attached. "The menu page looks good. Move the custom order form higher. Rose's recipe card should stay on the story page. No, the button should not say, 'Start your sweet journey.' That sounds illegal," Caleb replied with equal care, accepting the distance she needed without pretending it did not hurt. They worked because the launch date was too close for silence to become an excuse, but every update carried the ache of the question Emma had left behind. Was he going to leave again? The website launch was scheduled for Friday evening, paired with a small tasting night Olivia had suggested for local customers, hospital staff, and potential catering clients. Emma almost canceled 3 times, once because the frosting colors looked wrong, once because the new order form briefly charged someone $900 for a dozen cupcakes, once because she stood in front of the mirror in the shop bathroom and realized she was not afraid of the website failing. She was afraid of it working. If Sweet Haven grew, she would have to stop thinking of the shop as something barely surviving and start treating it like something capable of becoming. That required a different kind of courage. Maggie arrived at 4 with flowers, ribbon, and a look that dared Emma to argue. "Before you say no, these are not decorative," Maggie said. "They are emotionally strategic." Emma was piping chocolate espresso frosting onto mini cupcakes. "That phrase means nothing. It means people buy more when they feel like the room loves them." Emma glanced at the flower buckets. "Fine, put them near the window, but if you make the shop look like a wedding exploded, I will remove you." Maggie grinned. "There she is, terrified, bossy, and thriving." "I'm not thriving. Not yet. But you are wearing mascara." Emma touched her face before she could stop herself. Maggie laughed. "Oh, that was too easy. This is a business event." "Of course. I would wear mascara for any business event." "Absolutely." Emma gave her a warning look. Maggie softened and lowered her voice. "Is he coming?" Emma looked down at the cupcakes. "He built the website." "That is not what I asked." "I know." The silence that followed was gentle but full. Finally, Emma said, "Yes, he's coming." Maggie did not smile. She only squeezed Emma's shoulder because some moments were too tender for teasing. At the hospital, Caleb finished his final training session of the week to unexpected applause. The staff had improved quickly, not because he had dazzled them, but because he had listened before teaching. One nurse told him she felt more confident handling cases that used to terrify her. A resident asked if he would consider staying to build a permanent training program. Dr. Reeves stood at the back of the room saying nothing, but his expression carried a question Caleb had been carrying too. The offer from the city medical center still waited in his inbox. Prestige, money, research, recognition. Everything he had once believed a successful life was supposed to choose without hesitation. After the session, Dr. Reeves walked with Caleb down the hall. "You have a rare gift," he said. Caleb gave a tired smile. "You mentioned that before. I am mentioning it again because Willow Creek could use it." Caleb stopped near the window overlooking Main Street. "You can't match the offer." "No." The honesty was immediate. "Our salary would be smaller. The department would be messier. You would spend more time building systems than publishing papers. You would probably get frustrated by the equipment budget every other week." Caleb looked at him. "You are terrible at recruitment." "I am excellent at truth." Dr. Reeves smiled faintly, then grew serious. "But you would matter here in ways that might not make headlines. You would train people who stay. You would help patients who cannot drive 3 hours for specialized care. You would build something that belongs to a place, not just to a resume." The words followed Caleb into the parking lot, into his car, and all the way to Sweet Haven. A place, not just a resume. Years ago, he had left Willow Creek because he thought a bigger life had to be built somewhere else. Now he wondered whether he had confused size with meaning. By 6:30, Sweet Haven was glowing. The lights were warm, the display case full, and the tables arranged with small tasting plates. Lemon vanilla, chocolate espresso, strawberry basil, honey lavender, salted caramel, and Rose's original spice cake turned into a cupcake topped with cream cheese frosting. A tablet sat near the register, open to the new website but not yet public. Emma stood behind the counter in a soft blue dress beneath her apron, hair pinned back loosely, cheeks flushed from heat and nerves. When Caleb walked in, the bell rang above him. She looked up. For 1 second, all the noise in the room faded. He wore a dark jacket over a white shirt, no tie, sleeves slightly rolled, looking less like the celebrated specialist everyone at the hospital admired and more like the boy who had once argued passionately about fonts beside her grandmother's oven. His eyes moved over the shop, the flowers, the cupcakes, the framed recipes, the tablet, the customers beginning to arrive, and then returned to Emma. "It looks beautiful," he said. She almost deflected. Almost said the frosting was uneven, or the labels were crooked, or the strawberry basil might be a mistake. Instead, she made herself receive the words. "Thank you." People began arriving in waves. Hospital nurses came first, still wearing badges and tired smiles. Maggie brought half her flower shop customers. Olivia arrived with 2 local business owners and a tablet of her own, because apparently investors traveled with screens the way some people traveled with umbrellas. Tom Bennett from the Modern Cafe came too, carrying a small bag of coffee beans as a peace offering and telling Emma sincerely that Willow Creek needed both espresso flights and cupcakes with history. That surprised her. It also eased something she had not realized she was holding. Not every new thing was an enemy. Not every competitor wanted her gone. Caleb stayed near the tablet, helping guests navigate the site without making himself the center of attention. He showed one nurse how to order a custom dozen for a baby shower. He helped an older man enlarge the menu text. He explained the story page to Olivia, then stepped back so Emma could speak for herself. Emma noticed all of it while pretending not to. He was present without taking over, useful without performing, careful without becoming distant. It made her angry, briefly, because it was exactly the kind of man she could love again if she were not careful. At 7, Olivia tapped her glass gently with a spoon. "Emma," she said, "I believe it is time." The room quieted. Emma felt heat rush to her face. "I was hoping we could just casually discover the website." Maggie whispered, "Coward." Emma shot her a look, then stepped toward the counter where the tablet waited. Caleb stood a few feet away, close enough to help if the technology betrayed her, far enough not to claim the moment. Olivia nodded encouragingly. Emma placed one finger above the button that would make the site live. Her hand trembled. For a moment she thought of Rose cracking eggs into a blue bowl, Rose laughing when cakes sank in the middle, Rose saying food remembered love and silence was useful for cakes, not for hearts. Emma looked around the shop. Old customers, new customers, hospital staff, Maggie smiling too brightly, Olivia watching with professional pride, Caleb waiting with a softness that did not ask to be rewarded. Then Emma pressed the button. The page refreshed. Sweet Haven Cupcakes appeared online for the world to see, with the old sign sketch remade, Rose's recipe card in the story section, photos Caleb had taken, and Emma's words carrying the shop into a future she had been afraid to enter. Applause filled the shop. Emma laughed, then covered her mouth because the sound came too close to a sob. The first online order arrived less than a minute later. A dozen lemon vanilla cupcakes for pickup the next morning, then another, a custom birthday box, then a catering inquiry from the hospital. Maggie shouted, "It's working!" with no concern for dignity. Olivia smiled like a woman who had known it would. Caleb looked at Emma, and the pride in his face nearly broke through every wall she had rebuilt. Not pride in himself, pride in her. For the next hour, Sweet Haven felt like a dream finally learning how to stand upright. People tasted cupcakes, took cards, scanned the QR code, placed orders, and shared the website on their phones. Emma moved through the room answering questions, accepting compliments, and trying to breathe like a woman whose life was not changing too fast. The hospital ordered 8 dozen cupcakes for an upcoming staff event. Tom Bennett asked about featuring Sweet Haven Cupcakes in his cafe on weekends. Olivia quietly told Emma they should meet Monday to finalize investment terms. Every good thing felt real. And still, beneath it all, one question remained unfinished. After the last guests left and Maggie finally stopped hugging her, the shop settled into a golden mess of empty tasting plates, napkins, cupcake crumbs, flowers, and happiness too large to clean immediately. Caleb was stacking chairs when Emma turned the sign to closed. For a few minutes, neither spoke. The tablet on the counter kept lighting up with new order notifications. Emma should have been nothing but joyful. Instead, she felt joy pressed against fear, like two hands on opposite sides of the same door. Caleb set the final chair down. "I'm proud of you," he said. She turned toward him slowly. "I know." The answer surprised both of them. He smiled faintly. "You say that like you're mad about it." "I might be." "Why?" "Because your pride still matters to me." The honesty landed before she could soften it. Caleb's face changed. Emma folded her arms, not to hide this time, but to hold herself steady. "The site worked. The orders are coming in. Olivia wants to move forward. I should be happy." "You are happy." "Yes," she whispered, "and I'm terrified, because the person I want to tell first is also the person who might leave." Caleb stepped closer, but stopped before the distance became an assumption. "I haven't accepted the offer." "That is not the same as choosing to stay." "No," he said, "it isn't." The old Caleb might have rushed to reassure her with promises his life had not yet made room to keep. This Caleb seemed to understand that hope, offered carelessly, could become another kind of wound. "I spoke with Dr. Reeves today," he said. Emma's breath caught. "About what?" "A permanent role here." She searched his face. And it would be smaller than the city offer. Less money, less prestige, more work in some ways. He paused. "And maybe more meaning." Emma looked away because meaning was exactly the kind of word that could make a person forgive too quickly. "You can't stay for me?" "I know. I mean it, Caleb. If you stay only because of me, one hard year from now you'll resent the shop, the town, and whatever version of me you turned into the reason." He nodded. "That is why I haven't answered anyone yet." The bakery hummed softly around them. A notification chimed on the tablet. Neither looked at it. Caleb continued, "I spent years choosing the life that looked biggest from the outside. I don't regret becoming a doctor, but I'm starting to ask whether bigger and truer are always the same thing." Emma's eyes filled, and she hated how close she was to wanting him to say the thing she was afraid to hear. "What if you choose Willow Creek and it becomes too small again? Then I will have to be honest before I make you pay for my restlessness." "What if I let you close and you leave?" "Then it will hurt," he said quietly, "and I will have to know I caused a pain I had no right to repeat." "That is not comforting." "No," he said, "but it is true." The answer steadied her more than comfort would have. For a long moment they stood among the crumbs and flowers and new orders, two adults surrounded by the evidence that something could grow without becoming simple. Emma looked at the website glowing on the tablet. The homepage showed the logo Caleb had once imagined for her, now remade with her colors, her recipes, her story. He had helped build it, but he had not taken it from her. That mattered, maybe more than she wanted to admit. "I am still angry," she said, "I know. And scared. I know. And proud of you too, which is extremely inconvenient." Caleb smiled through the ache. "That seems fair?" Emma laughed softly, then wiped at one eye before the tear could fall. The night had given her almost too much. A website, orders, investment possibilities, old hope, new fear, and Caleb standing before her without asking to be forgiven quickly. She picked up one of the leftover lemon cupcakes and held it out to him. "Here," she said. He took it carefully. "For old times?" "No." She looked at the glowing tablet, then at the shop, then at him. "For tonight. Old times can wait their turn." Caleb's expression softened into something almost reverent. "To tonight, then." They ate the cupcake in silence, sharing the sweetness of a beginning neither of them was ready to name. On Monday morning, Emma Hayes woke before her alarm and reached for her phone before she remembered to be cautious with hope. The Sweet Haven website had received 27 orders since Friday night. 27. Not enough to save everything at once, not enough to make the overdue invoices disappear, not enough to turn fear into confidence overnight, but enough to make the shop feel less like a candle fighting wind and more like a light someone had finally noticed from the road. She lay still for a moment, staring at the numbers, letting herself feel joy before worry arrived to organize it. Then she saw an email from Olivia Grant with the subject line, "Investment Terms, Sweet Haven." Her heart began beating in a way frosting and flour could not calm. By 8, Emma was in the shop with the email printed beside a tray of strawberry basil cupcakes she had not yet decided whether to love or regret. Olivia's offer was real, a modest investment, structured payments. Funding for equipment, packaging, digital ads, local partnerships, and a small renovation of the front seating area. There was even room for a part-time employee during peak seasons, which sounded so luxurious Emma almost laughed. But the offer came with conditions. Monthly targets, a stronger catering calendar, online content twice a week, clearer product lines, and a new seasonal collection that would require Emma to stop saying yes to every custom request that came through the door with a sentimental story attached. Maggie arrived with coffee and found Emma glaring at the papers as if they had personally insulted her grandmother. "Good morning to you too," Maggie said. Emma pointed at the document. "Olivia wants me to create boundaries." Maggie set the coffee down. "How cruel. She wants me to limit custom orders. Terrifying. And choose bestsellers instead of baking whatever people ask for because I feel bad." Maggie pressed one hand dramatically to her chest. "A monster." Emma gave her a look. Maggie softened. This is not her trying to erase Rose. This is her trying to keep Rose's granddaughter from collapsing behind the counter." Emma looked toward the framed recipe cards on the wall. Rose's handwriting had survived grease, steam, grief, and time. It had survived Emma changing the shop's name, painting the walls, building a website, and turning old cake recipes into cupcakes. Still, every business decision felt like asking permission from a woman who was no longer there to answer. "What if growth makes the shop less like her?" Emma asked. Maggie leaned beside her on the counter. "What if refusing to grow makes the shop disappear completely?" That was the question Emma hated because it did not sound cruel. It sounded practical. And sometimes practicality hurt more than criticism. Across town, Caleb Monroe sat in Dr. Reeves's office with two offers on the desk between them. One was printed on thick paper from the city medical center, full of impressive numbers, official language, and a title that would have made his younger self sit up straighter. The other was not really an offer yet. It was a possibility, sketched in conversations and budget limits, a permanent role at Willow Creek Memorial, building a specialty training program, seeing patients the hospital usually had to refer away, mentoring staff who wanted to stay in rural medicine, less money, less prestige, less certainty, more roots. Dr. Reeves let him read in silence because good doctors knew when not to speak over a diagnosis. "You should take the city offer if that is what you want," Dr. Reeves said finally. Caleb looked up. "That is generous. It is honest. That hospital can give me things Willow Creek cannot. Yes, you are supposed to argue." Dr. Reeves smiled faintly. "I am old enough to know that trapping a good doctor in the wrong life turns him into a tired doctor, and tired doctors eventually harm themselves, even when they help everyone else." Caleb looked back at the papers. He had spent years chasing rooms where his name sounded important. Now he wondered why the smaller office felt harder to walk away from. The problem was Emma, and not Emma. That was the part Caleb had to be honest enough to face. He could not stay in Willow Creek only because he loved her. Love, when made responsible for every sacrifice, eventually became a courtroom. But he also could not pretend Emma had nothing to do with the question. She had reminded him of the boy who had once wanted his work to mean something intimate, not just impressive. She had reminded him that being needed by strangers was noble, but being known by a place required a different courage. He looked at Dr. Reeves and said, "I need time." Dr. Reeves nodded. "Then ask for it before someone else spends it for you." That afternoon, Emma met Olivia at the corner table of Sweet Haven with the investment papers between them and the tablet open to the new website. Olivia had already reviewed the launch numbers. "This is a strong start," she said. Emma tried not to glow. "It has only been a few days." "Good momentum matters. So does not drowning under expectations." Olivia smiled. "That is why we build systems." Emma looked at the conditions again. "Tell me the truth. If I accept this, do I become one of those shops that looks handmade but feels like it was designed by a committee?" Olivia's expression turned serious. "Only if you let fear make you passive." Emma absorbed that. Olivia continued, "Investment is not a personality, it is a tool. A dangerous one if you hand it to someone else and stop making choices. A useful one if you decide what must never be negotiated." Emma looked around the shop. The old counter, the recipe cards, the corner table, the bell over the door, the updated logo on the tablet. "What should be non-negotiable?" Olivia shook her head. "That is not my answer to give." Emma almost smiled. "You're very inconvenient for a consultant." "I try." Then Olivia slid a blank page across the table. "Write down what Sweet Haven must still feel like 5 years from now." Emma stared at the blank page longer than she expected. Then she wrote, "Warm, personal, honest, Rose still present, mine too." She paused, then added, "A place people can celebrate small things. A place I can survive running." That last sentence made her throat tighten. She had never written it so plainly before. Olivia read it upside down and said nothing, which Emma appreciated more than comfort. The bell rang before Emma could speak. Caleb entered wearing hospital scrubs beneath a dark coat, his hair slightly mussed, exhaustion in his eyes. He stopped when he saw Olivia in the papers. "I can come back?" Emma looked at the blank page, then at him. "No, stay." Olivia watched the exchange with professional discretion and personal curiosity she was too polished to display fully. "Dr. Monroe?" she said. "Ms. Grant." Emma looked between them. "You two know each other?" "Only through reputation," Olivia said. "Willow Creek has talked about very little else this week except your cupcakes and his training program." Caleb looked at Emma. "Your cupcakes deserve better publicity?" Emma tried not to smile. Olivia stood and gathered her papers. "I'll leave you with the terms. No answer today, but Emma?" Emma looked up. "Do not decide from fear of change. Decide from love of what you are protecting." Then she left before Emma could decide whether to thank her or panic. Caleb stayed near the door until Emma motioned toward the chair. He sat across from her at the corner table, the same table where he had once sketched impossible logos and where the new version of Sweet Haven now glowed on the tablet between them. "Investment offer?" he asked. "Yes." "Good?" "Scary." "That sounds like maybe good." She pushed the papers toward him, then pulled them back before he could read. "Actually, no. I don't want Dr. Designer former boyfriend analysis yet." He lifted both hands. "Understood," she sighed. "I might accept it." His smile was small but sincere. "I think Rose would be proud." Emma's eyes lifted sharply. "Don't use her to make this easier." "I'm not. I'm saying it because I think it's true." For a moment, Emma wanted to argue. Then she saw his face and understood he was not trying to win. He had learned somehow to speak gently without pushing. That made her brave enough to ask the question sitting behind every other question. "What about your offer?" Caleb's hand stilled on the table. "The city hospital wants an answer by the end of the week." "And Willow Creek?" "I spoke to Dr. Reeves. There may be a permanent role here, but it would be smaller." "Smaller how? Salary? Title? Resources? Research? Applause?" He gave a faint smile that did not reach his eyes. "Everything people usually tell you not to give up." Emma looked down at the blank page Olivia had given her. Warm, personal, honest. Rose still present. "Mine too." "What would you gain?" she asked. Caleb did not answer immediately. Through the window, Main Street moved at its usual unhurried pace. A woman crossed with library books. A hospital employee picked up coffee from Tom's cafe. Maggie rearranged flowers in her shop window. Caleb followed Emma's gaze. "I would gain the chance to build something where people know my name without needing my resume." The answer was quiet. "And maybe I would gain the chance to stop confusing distance with growth." Emma's eyes burned. "That sounds beautiful. But beautiful answers are easy when nothing has been signed." He nodded. "Yes." She leaned back in her chair, studying him with the caution of a woman who had learned not to mistake longing for evidence. "Caleb, I need you to understand something. If you choose the city, I will not hate you." His face tightened. "I might hate the ache. I might hate the timing. I might hate that it proves some part of me was right to be afraid." She swallowed. "But I will not make your dreams the villain just because they do not stay near mine." Caleb closed his eyes for a second. "That is exactly what scares me." "What? That you would be noble again while breaking?" Emma looked away. He continued softly. "I don't want your permission to leave if the cost is you pretending it doesn't hurt." Her fingers tightened around Olivia's blank page. "And I don't want you to stay if the cost is you pretending it doesn't cost anything." The sentence settled between them with painful fairness. They were not 17 anymore. They could no longer use noble words to hide from consequences. This time, if they chose each other, the choice had to be adult enough to carry both love and truth. Caleb stood slowly. "I'm going to ask the city hospital for more time." Emma looked up. "And Willow Creek? I'm going to ask Dr. Reeves what building the program here would actually require, not as an escape from the city offer, as a real choice." She nodded. "That sounds responsible?" He almost smiled. "How disappointing." "Deeply." He reached for his coat, then paused. "Emma, there is somewhere I'd like to go before I decide." Her heart seemed to know before he said it. "The baseball field?" Caleb nodded. "The place where we ended something without knowing how much of it would follow us." Emma should have said no. She had investment terms to review, cupcake orders to prepare, a website to update, and a heart already doing too much remembering. But the old baseball field had waited inside her for years, not as a place she avoided exactly, but as a place she had never returned to with the person who had made it hurt. Maybe Olivia was right. Maybe the past should not make decisions from fear. Emma folded the blank page and slipped it into her notebook. "Tomorrow evening," she said. Caleb's expression softened with relief and something deeper. "Tomorrow." After he left, Emma stood alone in Sweet Haven, surrounded by investment papers, new orders, old recipes, and the quiet knowledge that both of them were finally being asked the same question. What was worth choosing when the bigger life and the truer one were not the same? The old baseball field sat behind Willow Creek High, just past the line of maple trees that turned gold every October and bare every winter. By the time Emma arrived the next evening, the sky had softened into pale lavender, and the metal bleachers held the last light like something they did not know how to let go. The field was smaller than she remembered. That offended her somehow. Places that had held heartbreak should not shrink. They should remain enormous, dramatic, impossible to cross without music swelling somewhere in the distance. Instead, the grass was patchy, the bases were gone, and the fence behind, home plate, leaned slightly to the left. Caleb was already there, standing near the third base line with his hands in the pockets of his coat. He turned when he heard her footsteps. For 1 second, Emma saw him at 17. Tall, nervous, trying to be brave, trying not to cry because boys in Willow Creek had been taught that grief needed privacy. Then the present returned. He was 33 now, a respected doctor with tired eyes, a careful heart, and a decision waiting for him by the end of the week. Emma walked toward him slowly. "Look smaller?" she said. Caleb looked around. "I was hoping it would look less guilty." Despite herself, she smiled. "It does not. No, it really does not." They stood side by side, not touching, looking at the place where two younger versions of themselves had tried to turn heartbreak into maturity. The memory rose between them with painful clarity. Emma in a yellow sweater Rose had knitted, Caleb holding a scholarship letter folded in his back pocket, the bleachers empty, the air full of late summer insects and things neither of them knew how to say. He had told her he loved her too much to ask her to wait. She had told him she loved him too much to ask him to stay. They had both sounded so wise. They had both been bleeding. "I thought we were doing the right thing," Caleb said. Emma nodded. "We were." He looked at her. She kept her eyes on the field. "That's what made it hurt for so long," she continued. "If you had been cruel, I could have built a clean story. If I had begged, maybe I could have blamed myself differently. But we loved each other and still walked away. There was no villain. Just two people standing in front of lives too big for their hands." Caleb's throat moved. "I should have called after Rose died." "Yes," Emma said. The answer was quiet, but it didn't soften the truth. "You should have." He accepted it. No excuse, no explanation. That helped more than any apology he had ever rehearsed. Emma took a folded paper from her coat pocket and held it between both hands. Caleb noticed but did not ask. The restraint made her braver. "I brought the list," she said. His eyes lifted to hers. "The reasons?" She nodded. "The one I never finished." He breathed in as if even the idea of it required permission. "You don't have to show me." "I know. You don't owe me proof that you loved me." "I know that too." She looked down at the folded page. "But maybe I owe myself the truth that I did." They sat on the bottom bleacher, leaving a careful space between them. Emma unfolded the paper slowly. The old crease lines were soft from years of being hidden and found and hidden again. At the top, in younger handwriting, were the words, "Reasons I love Caleb." Only 3 reasons had been written then. The rest had waited through grief, bills, Rose's passing, the shop's reinvention, lonely holidays, practical mornings, and every year, Emma told herself, unfinished things were easier to survive. Caleb looked at the paper only once, then looked away, giving her privacy even while sitting beside her. That strangely became reason enough to continue. "I wrote the first one the night after we ended," Emma said. Her voice shook, but it held. "Because you believed in my dreams before I knew how to name them." Caleb closed his eyes briefly. Emma looked toward the field. "You were the first person who looked at me covered in flour behind my grandmother's counter and didn't act like it was small. You drew logos for a shop that didn't exist. You talked about packaging and colors and window displays like my little ideas deserved a future." She smiled through the ache. "At 17, that felt like magic. At 32, I think it was respect." Caleb's voice was rough when he answered. "It was love." Emma looked at him. "Yes," she said, "it was." The simplicity of agreeing almost broke something open. For years she had made their past smaller so it would hurt less. Teenage love, first love, sweet, foolish, unfinished. But sitting on the old bleachers, she could finally admit it had been real without needing it to justify every choice that followed. They had loved each other, they had lost each other, both truths could sit on the same bench. She read the second reason. "Because you never laughed at the girl who wanted to bake happiness into small things." A breath of laughter escaped her, but tears came with it. I was so embarrassed by how much I cared about cupcakes and frosting and making people feel better with something they could hold in one hand. Other people thought it was cute. You never made it cute. You made it important. Caleb shook his head. It was important. To you, maybe? To Rose, too. Emma looked down. Yes, to Rose, too. The field blurred for a moment and she let it. The third one was harder, she said. Caleb waited. Emma read, because even when you left, you taught me that love could be big enough to hurt. He looked down at his hands. I hated that one for years, she admitted. I hated that I wrote it. I hated that some part of me still wanted to make your leaving meaningful instead of just painful. But the truth is, loving you made me bigger before it broke me. It made me imagine a future. It made me brave enough to want something. And when you left, I had to learn how to want it without you. Caleb's eyes shone. I never wanted to be the reason you had to learn that alone. But you were, she said gently. And I did. The wind moved softly across the field. Emma turned the page over. The remaining reasons were written in newer ink, added the night after the website launch, while orders chimed on her phone and her heart refused to sleep. I finished it, she said. Caleb looked at her then, startled. When? After the site went live. His face changed, hope and fear arriving together. Emma held the paper tighter. I didn't finish it because everything was fixed. Nothing is fixed that easily. I finished it because I realized the list was never only about why I loved you then. It was about whether I could love you now. She read the fourth reason. Because you came back different, but your eyes still remembered me. Caleb lowered his head, overwhelmed. Emma continued before courage left. Because you helped me build without trying to own what I was building. Her voice steadied on the fifth reason because that one belonged to the present. You never took the website from me. You never made the shop yours because you understood something I didn't. You helped me see Sweet Haven clearly, but you let it remain mine. Caleb looked at her with quiet intensity. It was always yours. Yes, she whispered, and you made me feel that instead of just saying it. She read the sixth. Because you listened to the silence I kept for years. Caleb's eyes filled. Emma folded the paper slightly, then opened it again. I didn't know how much I needed someone to hear what I never said. That I understood why you left and still hurt. That Rose died and I needed you and was angry you didn't know how to come. That I was proud of you and resentful and lonely and still baking lemon cupcakes like some ridiculous part of me expected you to walk through the door. She gave a tearful laugh. Which you did, annoyingly. Caleb laughed softly through his own tears. I have terrible timing. You have emotionally catastrophic timing. I accept that diagnosis. She looked back at the list. Reason 7, because you chose a smaller life only if it meant a truer one. His smile faded. I haven't chosen yet. I know. That reason may be premature. No, Emma said. It is not about whether you sign a contract here tomorrow. It is about the fact that you finally asked the question honestly. You stopped treating prestige as automatic truth. That matters to me? Caleb looked toward the field, breathing carefully. Emma read the 8th reason, because you made the past ache less without pretending it never hurt. That one made both of them quiet. She looked at the bleachers beneath them, then at the field where they had ended. You didn't come back and tell me we should forget what happened. You didn't act like the old love erased the old pain. You sat with it. You let me be angry. You let me say you should have called. You let me stop being noble. Caleb's voice was barely above a whisper. You deserved that years ago. Maybe, she said. But I have it now. She looked at the 9th reason and almost smiled. Because my grandmother's kitchen always felt warmer when you were in it. Caleb pressed a hand over his mouth for a moment, and Emma knew Rose had entered the space between them. She loved you, Emma said. I loved her too. I know. She made me feel less afraid of wanting a life that wasn't only what my father expected. Emma nodded. She did that for people. Then she looked at the final line and felt her whole body tremble. The 10th reason was the simplest, the most dangerous, the most true. Because I never really stopped, she read. The field went silent around them. Caleb did not move. Emma folded the paper slowly, but this time she did not hide it. She held it on her lap like something finished, not buried. I don't know exactly what happens next, she said. I don't know what you'll choose about the hospital. I don't know what I'll decide about Olivia's investment. I don't know how two people who were once young and heartbroken learn to love each other as adults. She looked at him. But I know I never really stopped loving you, and I'm tired of pretending that not saying it made me safer. Caleb reached for her hand, slowly enough for her to refuse. She did not. His fingers closed around hers with a care that felt like a promise made quietly rather than declared. I never stopped either, he said. The words were simple, but they carried years. Emma closed her eyes as they entered her, not as a solution, not as a guarantee, but as truth finally spoken where truth had once been avoided. He turned toward the field. We ended something here because we thought love meant not holding each other back. Emma looked at the old grass, the leaning fence, the small place that had once felt big enough to break them. And now, she asked. Caleb looked back at her. Now maybe love means choosing without disappearing. Emma held his hand tighter. The next morning, she would hang a small frame note inside Sweet Haven with a new title written in careful ink, 10 Reasons to Love Again. The next morning, Emma arrived at Sweet Haven before sunrise with the folded list in her coat pocket and a decision sitting quietly inside her chest. The shop was dark when she unlocked the door, but it did not feel lonely anymore. The website orders waited on the tablet beside the register. Olivia's investment terms rested in a neat folder near the coffee machine. Rose's recipe cards glowed softly once Emma turned on the wall lights. And the restored Sweet Haven logo, the one Caleb had first imagined years ago and helped rebuild now, looked back at her from the screen like proof that some dreams could leave and still find their way home. Emma started with the vanilla cupcakes. Lemon frosting first, because some mornings deserved brightness. Then chocolate espresso for the hospital order, then strawberry basil, which had survived its experimental phase and become, to Emma's great annoyance, popular. As she worked, she thought about the baseball field, about Caleb's hand closing around hers, about the sentence he had given her like a promise, still learning how to stand. Love means choosing without disappearing. She had repeated it all night, not because it solved everything, because it named the kind of love she wanted now. At 9, Olivia arrived to finalize the investment conversation. Emma expected to be nervous, but something inside her had steadied after reading the list aloud. Maybe telling the truth about love made it easier to tell the truth about business, too. She sat across from Olivia at the corner table, the same table where Caleb had once drawn her future in blue ink, and placed her revised terms on top of the folder. Olivia read them without expression at first, then one eyebrow lifted. "You added non-negotiables." Emma nodded. "Yes. Rose's recipes remain part of the brand," Olivia read. "The shop name stays, the old counter stays. The website tells the story without turning grief into decoration. Seasonal growth is allowed, but no manufactured nostalgia." Emma held her breath. Olivia looked up and smiled. "Good." "Good?" Emma repeated. "Very good," Olivia said. "Investors can work with boundaries. What they cannot work with is a founder who does not know what she is protecting." Emma looked around Sweet Haven. The framed recipes, the pastel shelves, the old bell, the cupcakes lined up like small promises in the display case. For years, she had feared that accepting help meant surrendering the soul of the shop. Now she understood that help became dangerous only when she stopped leading. She signed the revised agreement with a hand that trembled only slightly. Olivia offered her a pen, then a smile that was less corporate than Emma expected. "Congratulations," she said. "Sweet Haven is growing." Emma looked toward Rose's recipe wall. "No," she whispered, "it's becoming." And for the first time, growth did not feel like betrayal. It felt like honoring Rose by allowing the dream to breathe beyond survival. The little shop would change, but this time, change would not erase memory. It would carry it forward. Across town, Caleb gave his answer too. He sat in Dr. Reeves's office, the city hospital offer open on his phone, and the Willow Creek proposal spread across the desk in front of him. There was no comparison on paper. The city offer was larger, cleaner, louder. The Willow Creek role was smaller, messier, and full of things that would require patience before anyone called them impressive. But Caleb had spent enough years chasing impressive. He had learned that applause could fill a room without warming a life. So he declined the city offer with gratitude, then accepted Willow Creek's permanent role with a strange calm that felt less like sacrifice and more like recognition. Dr. Reeves shook his hand and tried not to look too pleased. "You understand what you're choosing?" Caleb smiled faintly. "I think I finally do." "Good, because the equipment budget really is terrible. I was warned. And the training program will take years to build." "I know. And people will assume you stayed for Emma Hayes." Caleb's smile softened. "They may." Dr. Reeves studied him. "And did you?" Caleb looked through the office window toward Main Street, toward the direction of Sweet Haven. "I stayed because I want my work to belong somewhere," he said. Then after a pause, he added, "And because I do?" He went to Sweet Haven after his hospital shift ended. The sky outside was turning gold, and Main Street had begun its slow evening quiet. Through the window, he saw Emma behind the counter, boxing cupcakes for the hospital order while Maggie pretended not to watch the door every 5 seconds. For a moment, Caleb stayed outside just to see Emma inside the life she had built. Not because he wanted to own any part of it, because he finally understood the privilege of being invited near it. When he opened the door, the bell rang above him, bright and familiar. Emma looked up. And this time, she smiled before remembering to be careful. Maggie saw the look between them and immediately grabbed her flower bucket. I suddenly have urgent flower emergencies elsewhere. Emma rolled her eyes. You own the shop next door. Exactly, very far. Practically another continent. Caleb stepped aside as Maggie passed. She pointed one finger at him. If you hurt her, I will ruin your life with tasteful arrangements suitable for funerals. Caleb nodded solemnly. Understood. Maggie looked satisfied. Then she turned to Emma and winked before leaving them alone with the hum of the display case and the smell of buttercream in the air. Emma wiped her hands on her apron, suddenly unsure what to do with them. You came from the hospital? Yes. How was it? Permanent. She went very still. Caleb took one careful step closer. I accepted the role here. Emma's lips parted, but no words came immediately. He continued before hope could become pressure. I didn't choose it only because of you. I chose it because I want my work to belong somewhere. I chose it because Willow Creek needs doctors who do not treat small towns like temporary assignments. I chose it because I am tired of being impressive in places where no one knows when I'm lonely. His voice softened. And I chose it because I want to learn how to stay without making you responsible for my staying. Emma's eyes filled before she could stop them. She turned away toward the recipe wall, but Caleb did not follow. He waited. That was becoming one of the reasons too, though she had already finished the list. When she turned back, she reached beneath the counter and took out a small frame. Inside was a clean page she had written that morning. Not the old yellowed list, but a new one titled 10 Reasons to Love You Again. Caleb looked at it, then at her. You framed it? Emma nodded. I didn't want to hide it anymore. His eyes shone. Where will you put it? She looked toward the wall beside Rose's recipes. Beside the people who taught me not to be ashamed of love. Together they hung it on the wall. Rose's recipe cards on one side, Caleb's restored Sweet Haven sketch beneath them. Emma's list beside both, written in careful ink. For a moment, Caleb did not read it. He simply stood there, breathing like a man who understood he had been trusted with something sacred. Emma touched the bottom of the frame and whispered, It isn't the same list I started years ago. Caleb looked at her. No? No, she said. That one was written by a girl trying to survive goodbye. This one was written by a woman deciding whether love could begin again. Then she read the list aloud, slowly, letting every reason enter the warm little shop that had held both memory and renewal. 1. Because you believed in my dreams before I knew how to name them. 2. Because you never laughed at the girl who wanted to bake happiness into small things. 3. Because even when you left, you taught me that love could be big enough to hurt. 4. Because you came back different, but your eyes still remembered me. 5. Because you helped me build without trying to own what I was building. Caleb lowered his head, overwhelmed. Emma kept reading, her voice trembling but strong. 6. Because you listened to the silence I kept for years. 7. Because you chose a smaller life only if it meant a truer one. 8. Because you made the past ache less without pretending it never hurt. 9. Because my grandmother's kitchen always felt warmer when you were in it. 10. Because I never really stopped. When she finished, the shop was completely silent. Not empty, silent in the way sacred things are silent after the truth has finally been spoken. Caleb turned toward her, tears bright in his eyes. I don't know how to deserve that, he said. Emma smiled through her own tears. You don't deserve a list by being perfect. No? No, she whispered. You honor it by living differently. He nodded, the words entering him fully. I will. She touched the frame once more. And I will too. I will stop pretending I'm fine just because I understand. I will stop hiding love like it embarrasses me. And I will stop treating staying as something small. The small re-inauguration of Sweet Haven happened that evening without velvet ropes, speeches, or anything Emma would have called dramatic if Maggie had suggested it. There were cupcakes on tiered stands, flowers by the window, the new website open on a tablet near the register, and a small sign telling customers they could now order online. Olivia came and quietly praised the packaging. Dr. Reeves arrived with 3 nurses from the hospital and ordered 24 lemon vanilla cupcakes for the staff room. Tom Bennett brought coffee from his cafe and insisted it paired well with Emma's chocolate espresso flavor. People scanned the QR code, placed orders, took photos, and told Emma the shop looked exactly like itself, only easier to find. Emma moved through the room accepting congratulations with flushed cheeks and a heart that felt too full for her ribs. Caleb helped in the background, refilling napkins, carrying boxes, answering website questions when asked, never once stepping in front of her. That mattered more than he could know. He had helped her build the digital doorway, but Sweet Haven still felt like hers. Rose still lived in the recipes. Emma lived in the colors, the menu, the frosting, the new courage. And Caleb lived somewhere in the careful spaces he had helped restore, not as an owner of the dream, but as someone who had finally learned how to stand beside it. When the last customer left and Maggie finally stopped inventing reasons to linger, the shop settled into a warm, golden quiet. Cupcake crumbs dotted the counter. The tablet chimed with one last order. The flowers near the window leaned slightly from the heat. Emma turned the sign to closed, then walked back to the corner table carrying one lemon vanilla cupcake on a small plate. Caleb looked at it and smiled softly. Old times? Emma shook her head. New ones. She cut the cupcake in half with a little plastic knife and handed him one piece. They ate in silence for a moment, the sweetness carrying more than sugar. Then Emma reached across the table and took his hand. I need us to go slowly, she said. Caleb nodded. I know. I need honesty before comfort. Yes. And I need you to tell me when staying is hard. His hand tightened gently around hers. I will. He stood and came around the table, stopping close enough for her to choose the rest. Behind them, the framed list caught the golden light. Rose's recipes watched from the wall. The website glowed quietly on the tablet, open to the homepage where Sweet Haven looked like a dream that had learned to survive. Caleb lifted one hand and brushed a tear from Emma's cheek with his thumb. I love you, he said. No drama, no demand, no attempt to make the words finish the story before they had lived it. Emma placed her hand over his. I love you too, she whispered. And this time, we choose without disappearing. Their kiss began softly inside Sweet Haven, beneath the warm lights and the quiet witness of recipes, memories, cupcakes, and second chances. It did not feel like going back to high school or undoing the baseball field goodbye. It felt like something older than nostalgia and stronger than regret, a love returning not as a memory but as a decision.